Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and we're barely moving, up 1%, maybe slightly less than 1% this week, a couple of thousand, and yeah, not a huge amount happening going into the end of the year. Sort of most coins not really moving a huge amount. Looking at the coin shares report, it was a relatively small week, but positive. 716 million in total inflow. The split on this was a little bit unusual. We're starting to see more tokens come in. Bitcoin was 350 million of this, so less than half. Yeah, less than half. Ethereum as well, 39 million. The multi-asset got 31. But second place, XRP with 244 million. 245 million nearly, which is a hell of a lot. It's nearly sort of, what, 7-8% of total AUM. And yeah, it's starting to, well, it has been getting a lot of inflow, to be fair. Sort of XRP and Solana had been trading blows, but all of a sudden, whether there's been one more sort of large ETF launch, don't know, but Solana only got 3 million. Short Bitcoin people have been getting rid of in quite some size. That's over sort of 12% of AUM sold off on short Bitcoin. 4 million into Sui, and it looks like the Grayscale Chainlink ETF trust converted into an ETF, and so they got 53 million in inflows with 140 in total. That is a hell of a week. So yeah, starting to get some sort of spread around, which is quite good. That does mean the sort of flows by country is spread around quite a bit as well. So Canada getting 80 million, Germany 97 million, Switzerland 34. So US is quite a bit, but yeah, seeing some pretty large figures from across the world. Back to positive on this week with Solana at least. You see sort of 21 shares has all but died pretty much. They had their week of quite noticeable outflows, and they've just gone zero for many days in a row. So I take it that large outflow compared to the drop in price and the seed amount leaves them at sort of almost zero in assets under management, or in this Solana fund at least. So yeah, a little bit unusual, where sort of all of the others basically have gone to, well, have never had a negative day, let alone flipped sort of negative overall. So this week you saw a sort of 7.8 million, couple of 4 millions in the Bitwise fund, some fairly small inflows into the Vanek one. Fidelity, sort of seeing again some sort of reasonably small inflows. Grayscale actually seeing sort of a couple of reasonable days, 5.8 million, and so yeah, they all add up, and it's sort of put about 30 million for the week, so not too bad. Ethereum was a little bit different. We sort of saw a couple of 3 days of reasonable inflows. Tuesday was sort of inflow across the board, even into the sort of old Grayscale. Still getting a hell of a lot of up and down on that. I think this is sort of people trading. Reasonable amount going into the new Grayscale, and then Thursday and Friday sort of saw a proper reversal of that. Thursday and Friday both outflow days for the new Grayscale, and quite a bit coming out of the old one. I think this is just bleeding assets over time. It's in 5 billion in outflows, and it looks like they started with 9.2. So yeah, one day that'll presumably all be gone at 2.5% fee. It's not exactly the best value. Saw some small outflows from Fidelity later in the week, but 51 million in on Tuesday. So yeah, overall they're doing all right. And BlackRock with a full inflow week, or apart from Thursday, but no negatives. So Ethereum doing okay on a sort of net for the week, even with those Thursday and Friday outflows. Bitcoin had a sort of similar but mixed bag. Overall, Monday was slightly negative, again, partly due to Grayscale. Tuesday had quite a large outflow from BlackRock, but in a larger inflow from Fidelity to sort of equal that out. And again, inflows into old Grayscale and things. And then Wednesday, BlackRock completely reversed their outflow with 192 million in. So yeah, Thursday was a little bit negative and Friday positive again. So overall, what is that? A couple of 100 million in on a net basis, 300 million in. So okay for Bitcoin, but sort of not exactly going to set the world alight. Just looking at strategy, I think they were kind of wanting to put the idea of issuing shares and keeping the cash behind them because they've done some more raises, I presume, and bought over 10,000 Bitcoin, which they haven't been sort of doing in past months. They did a 10,000 just recently, and then sort of did their, whatever it was, 1.5 billion raise and holding it as cash to pay out the dividend, which sort of just seems very, very odd. Sort of issue debt, buy Bitcoin, and then issue shares and use that to pay back the the debt that you issued. It's all sort of very circular and strange, but guessing they wanted to put that behind them. So paid 90,615. Not the best timed buys, but there you go. And pushes their average closer to 75,000. So a little bit more risk there if we get a sort of reasonable bear market at some point, even if I do think that'll be 2027. Still sort of thinking next year is going to be a good year, but 2027 I think is when some of their debt comes due. So potential issues in there. Not sure I'd want to be too heavy in Bitcoin sort of going into a bear market with this sort of up for grabs. And they've been sort of arguing various arguments about getting potentially knocked out of MSCI indexes and the Nasdaq. It looks like they've held on to the Nasdaq inclusion. Nasdaq more sort of tech-based firms, they seem more willing to accept it, but S&P and sort of MSCI are a different deal. I suppose the thing that we probably should be focusing on, and isn't really getting loads and loads of news, is the fact that the US market structure bill, the Clarity Act, I believe it's still called, is sort of working its way through the US Senate. People are sort of still seem very unhappy that it looks like it's not going to get signed off in December. I would sort of think that was a little bit quick anyway. The Genius Act, the stablecoin bill, sort of took quite a long while to go through, and that's just stablecoins. You'd think sort of market structure of the whole space would take quite a long while. I sort of thought this would be, I don't know, middle of next year at the earliest. They're saying this talks could drift into January, which, if you get some meaningful progress in January, I think that could sort of kick off the start of a good year. Looks like issues that are still sort of coming up are ethics rules for government officials' involvement with digital assets, most significantly Donald Trump, of course, so he's not exactly helped things in terms of this going through. People unhappy that he was issuing tokens and sort of owns a company effectively, heavily involved with crypto, so maybe sort of enriching himself by pushing this crypto agenda. They're looking at whether stablecoins should be tied to yield, which, if you hold a stablecoin and don't get any yield at all, then it's not particularly attractive, although it does do wonders for people like Tether, which we'll come to. They're talking about what powers the SEC would be granted to decide which tokens it governs on, and treatment of DeFi, which sort of sounds incredibly broad, and I would think needs a hell of a lot of talks just on its own. I would think they would maybe do a DeFi bill, but tying it in with this, maybe they can. But yeah, it looks like they're sort of going back and forth, and it may sort of get pushed into January. But as I say, if we get any sort of meaningful progress in January, or this could get signed off, then yeah, I think that would be really, really positive. This seemed quite funny. I thought Vanguard maybe getting praised for being pro crypto, or sort of partly getting laughed at for being late to the party. They sort of wanted to come out and defend themselves. So you saw Vanguard's global head of quantitative equity, John Amerix, said that yeah, while they've now allowed their 50 million clients to purchase Bitcoin ETFs, he said the space and even Bitcoin still resembles a speculative collectible more than an asset meant to build long-term wealth, comparing it to a digital labubu, which I had no idea what it is. They give you the picture there, and I sort of had a Google. It's a little plushy toy that is sort of the hot thing at the moment. So yes, very unusual. Wanting to sort of call it a beanie baby type thing, speculative asset. To be fair, it's not just crypto. Vanguard obviously don't offer their own commodities ETFs. There's no oil or sort of gold ETFs or anything like that. So not offering their own crypto one is kind of obvious. It would be seen as a little bit strange. But offering you to buy other people's ones from BlackRock and Fidelity on their platform sort of just seems like giving people the choice, basically. So you can buy, BlackRock Gold ETF on Vanguard. I think people were just saying, why can we not buy a crypto one? This is restricting us, and we're big boys, and we can decide for ourselves, even if you think it's a labubu. So, yeah, this just seemed a bit of petty defending themselves. So this seemed really interesting. The sort of rate cut that we've just had this week, not deterring Tether's ambitions. Obviously, they'll earn slightly less interest with with the interest rate cut, but they're still earning quite a lot. With what I gather is still sort of 100 employees. They are making serious money, and they took a 10% stake in Juventus Football Club, the sort of probably the most famous, if not the most successful at the moment, Italian football club. And they offered the Agnelli family an all-cash deal to buy out their 65.4% stake, and basically they have told them to get stuffed. This is Exor, the majority shareholder, has unanimously rejected their bid, saying that it has no intention to sell any of its shares in Juventus to a third party, including but not restricted to Tether. So, yeah, that's interesting. I believe Exor also own a significant part of Ferrari. They sort of go back to Fiat Motor Corporation, and yeah, so they own a reasonable amount as well. But I just thought the idea that Tether are even offering to sort of buy the whole lot out would be interesting. Sort of owning a football club is a little bit different to just owning a 10% stake in one, and benefiting off that potential, and sort of getting to put your name on the boards, presumably having a bit of free advertising, and yeah, actually owning them would be a little bit different. Sort of stable coin money being used to fund player acquisitions and things. Talking about Champions League, and yeah, all a little bit strange, but go Paolo. And speaking of stable coins, starting to get more of these sort of announcements that don't seem to make a huge amount of press. They do, they get an article, but I don't see too many people sharing them. Interactive brokers, you can now deposit stable coins on their platform to fund your account. So, interesting. It's sort of, I guess they're not going to start accepting Bitcoin and Fartcoin and that sort of thing, but stable coins at least, represent the same as a dollar, so they're accepting this. And they are actually investing in stablecoin infrastructure. They led a $104 million funding round for Zero Hash. So, yeah, they're putting a little bit into that. And I did see YouTube are now offering to pay people out to PayPal in stablecoins as well. So, yeah, starting to get a little bit of a push. I think the US is quite heavily sort of in favour of stablecoins increasing in popularity because they're all dollar based and it creates demand for dollars or for T-bills and US debt at least. So yeah, expect more of these announcements, I suppose. Looking at the miners, we got a difficulty drop on Thursday, and since then we have been at sort of relatively low levels, I suppose, going under 1 zeta hash again, sort of this morning, down to 924, and it's sort of been relatively low. We haven't had the big spike ups, above sort of 1.3 zeta hash since Monday, and yeah, that has sort of pushed. So we had the drop in end of November to 149 difficulty. It's now dropped to 148.2. Not a huge drop, but everything helps, and especially with price increasing as well, it's a little bit of help for the miners. And of course, not a huge amount, but hash rate is a little bit slow at the moment, so we're at 9.9 block time. Yeah, that is a little bit too fast actually. So looking at 1% estimated increase to difficulty, but this is Christmas Day when it's sort of predicted to go through, so that's quite a way away, and I expect some change by then. And global liquidity, obviously the correlation here has sort of completely broken down, but still keeping an eye on it just to see where we could potentially go in the future. And we have, it looks like, broke to a new high, only a sort of ever so slightly higher high. So if we're still talking the sort of 12-week delays, then this puts us sort of, increasing quite a bit in the February and start of March period. So, who knows? Obviously, we've broken down, we're not ticking up week by week as it sort of was before, but as I say, zoom out over a sort of multi-month, multi-year period, this does seem to be a reasonable indication. So there had sort of been talks that liquidity was slowing down. I think you can probably fairly say it is slowing down. We're not getting this sort of April to September increase that we got. It's certainly a flatter curve, but still going to new highs. It doesn't look like we're sort of getting the epic recession that a lot of people are predicting, unless this is just not going to be a useful metric for that. And coins for the week, as I say, not much has moved as far as the big coins go. Bitcoin up 0.5%, Solana up 0.1%, so pretty much flat. Ethereum is the outperformer for the week at 2.2%, so it's been a slow week. And actually everything else is down. Chainlink down 1.7%, Helium down 5.5%, Radium down 6.5%, Metaplex down 2.6%, Gito down 13%, and of course, underperformer for the week is Honey down 17%. So, yeah, they're basically dead, some of these small coins, and I may get to sort of take some tax loss harvesting on these and sort of put it down to a bad experience, or maybe next year things start to perk up for Bitcoin and sort of the altcoin space as well. We'll have to see. But it's sort of at the moment, it would look like a good outcome would be getting back to break even on some of these coins. So I would still put those down as a fairly poor investment. But there you go. Leave your thoughts in comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.